Residential home sales activity recorded through the MLS system for our board totaled 369 units in July of 2022 compared to 749 units in July of 2021. In July 2022, the Niagara Association of Realtors listed 1,174 residential properties compared to 991 in July of 2021. And the average days went up to 31 days from 20. And they are saying we continue to trend towards a buyer's market. I would argue we are there.
Fear is one of the biggest reasons why people will take action, click, read, whatever. And so with that being said, for any of the viewers, just understand that the headlines don't always tell the full story. They just tell the story that wants to be told to get you to capture your attention to read the next thing. And that's kind of the intention of the headline. So there's a lot of other variables that go into play. Obviously, everybody looks at price first and foremost, but there's tons of other stuff. And what Kayla is saying here is, all right, guys, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I am excited to once again be your guest host. I'm Emma Pace, and I run a real estate team in Toronto called Monstera Real Estate. Enough about me. We have the star of the show with me today. We've got Kayla Smith, the absolute expert of the Niagara region, who is about to drop some bombs on you guys. So how you doing, Kayla?
I'm good, Emma. Thanks for the warm welcome. That might be my favorite one yet. All right, so the Niagara Association of Realtors, they always put out a little spiel of their own before they release the stats. So this month, residential home sales activity recorded through the MLS system for our board totaled 369 units in July of 2022 compared to 749 units in July of 2021. In July 2022, the Niagara Association of Realtors listed 1,174 residential properties compared to 991 in July of 2021. And the average days went up to 31 days from 20. And they are saying we continue to trend towards a buyer's market. I would argue we are there. And that average prices have dropped in July and inventory continues to increase. So, I mean, I think, and Emma, you can probably attest to this, kind of similar across the boards, as far as I can tell, but Niagara seems to have a massive decline in sales and a bit of an uptick in listings here.
Yeah, so it looks like you guys are running pretty similarly, like 50-ish%. I'm just doing quick math in my head. Pretty much like 50% of where we were last year, which is I'm assuming last year was probably also like record setting in terms of numbers of transactions. So I guess just for any viewers to kind of put this into easy, because this is like when you look at numbers and we look at them every month, you're like, that sounds great. What does that mean? What this means is we're running at half of the volume that we had last year, which last year was also crazy. And so we're probably looking at running traditionally around 3/4 of what would be kind of a normal year, because last year was also not normal.
Yes, I would. And then, I mean, these numbers kind of tell it a little bit more. The year over year, so I haven't done a monthly update in a few months because we have done a few other videos. And it's the first time that I'm not like, oh yeah, and it's up 40% year over year. So it's, again, I think the Niagara totals you can see for the number of new listings, exactly what I just said, it went up a bit. But it's really the number of sales that's the story. But again, with keeping in mind that last year was like unprecedented in terms of how many sales happened, especially because the summer tends to be a little bit slower.
Yeah.
It's definitely a bit of an eye-opening situation. But if it's compared to before pre-COVID, it would look a little more normal.
Yeah.
And then we're still seeing that slight increase there in price overall. The only benchmark price that has appeared to drop is the Fonthill Pelham area. But I always say like those little niche areas, because there's such a vast array of houses and there's land and there's, you know, there's a bunch of different things that play into that. I think that it's safe to say we're still up a little. And then this days on market, I mean, it's up. We're seeing houses sit for longer. We're seeing the conditions come back, which is nice, I think, from a buyer and a seller perspective. So yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing year over year. And then month over month, not a drastic change. Like number of new listings went down, but again, seasonality of real estate, that tends to happen, especially this is the first summer where things are open, fully open. So people are, you know, out doing things and traveling quite a bit. I mean, everyone's heard the Pearson Airport nightmare stories.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I think what's interesting here, you're talking about this Fonthill area, which I'm not, I don't know Niagara very well, but I think it's easy for those numbers. If you actually look at the volume's quite low. Like you have 13 sales. So the numbers can be very easily skewed if you have one really big or one really small sale that happens and you only have 13 in comparison to St. Catharines when you've got 100 trades. And so you've just got, you know, more fruits in the basket to kind of select from there out of 109 instead of 13. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always say, like, we have a bunch of, like, these tiny little markets, like Fonthill, Pelham being one of them. Niagara on the Lake is its own, like, luxury market. And the West Lincoln, too, because there's a lot of houses that have a lot of land. Like, the volatility and the stats of those markets is much, much higher because, like you said, we have much less to base it off of. And the houses are all very different. So if 1 month all the multi-million-dollar homes in Pelham go up for sale and sell, and then the next month all of the average homes, like it's definitely those ones I tell people like the stats look different. And actually I pulled some stats just to compare Niagara on the Lake, which I'll get to, but a bit of a dip in price. Again, seasonality has a lot to do with that, and the number of sales. And then our average days on market went up. That's actually quite a drastic increase for a month to month, but again, there's not one, obviously there's more inventory, but two, like it's also a matter of people not being here, so the houses are sitting longer. So this is just a different way of looking at it. And Emma, you were just about spot on with your
there
math.
You go. Quick math in my head. There you go.
So great job. But yeah, so the year over year change in the number of sales was down 50.7%, which is huge, but price still up 9.9%. Average days on market increased by 59.4%. And I always say this with the caveat of like houses are still selling within a good time frame. It's just there are those houses that are coming up, especially right now, priced like it's January, February, and they're sitting for a heck of a lot longer because the market has shifted as it has. So I don't think that every house that goes up sits for a month. That's not exactly true. And then the number of new listings up by 18.5% over last year. So, I mean, the number of new listings versus the number of sales in July 2021 is actually insane. Like there was literally zero inventory just about. And then obviously now a much better ratio if you're
It's actually interesting because many of these markets, since I've been doing the updates, we've seen that actually come down a little bit in terms of new listings that have kind of been hitting the market. So nice for Niagara. I like that.
Yeah, quite a few.
Cool.
But then, so the number of new listings from June to July, obviously, again, went down and the average days on market went up, but I still think that it has a lot of that seasonality play. And I think that people need to remember that the summer is historically just very slow.
Yeah.
In the last 2-3 years, however long it was, just set a precedent that wasn't realistic. So I think when people are freaking out and saying, everything's falling to the ground, it's not exactly true. It's just.
And I agree with that. I think it's, the media does a great job, but there's obviously some psychological research that they have done over hundreds of years on why people do certain things, and that was from reading like physical newspaper headlines to now clicking on internet articles or emails or whatever it happens to be. And fear is one of the biggest reasons why people will take action, click, read, whatever. And so with that being said, for any of the viewers, just understand that the headlines don't always tell the full story. They just tell the story that wants to be told to get you to capture your attention to read the next thing. And that's kind of the intention of the headline. So there's a lot of other variables that go into play. Obviously, everybody looks at price first and foremost, but there's tons of other stuff. And what Kayla's saying here is historically, the summer is a little slower. So don't just think the sky is falling, or you should just always think the sky is falling in the summer.
They also because I'll obviously click into the articles that I think that people that are concerned are clicking into. And if you actually read through the article, they're not all as doom and gloom as their title is.
Yeah.
And it's really exactly like you said, just trying to get people to click into them, to read them. And that makes a ton of sense that, from a psychological perspective, they are playing you, my friends.
Yeah. I mean, look, it works.
Yes, exactly.
Really well.
Absolutely works. So
that's what they're trying to do. They're a business. They're trying to get clicks, views, all of that kind of stuff. And so it makes sense. Their strategy works, but you have to look at the full context of the thing. Don't just make your entire judgment call off of the headline, because the headlines are tested against each other to figure out which one gets the most clicks.
Yes, exactly. And this is what I was talking about. So you can kind of see, so we have Niagara as a whole as this gray line here.
Okay.
And then you have St. Catharines almost following that gray line to a T. Mm-hmm. It varies a bit, and then Thorold, you see this massive spike here because Thorold's not very big. There's 22,000 people, right? So, but it is growing very fast. It is the 8th fastest growing municipality in Canada and the 4th in Ontario. But this Niagara on the Lake line, you can see when everything was going up, it was going down. And then we had a massive drop here and we spiked up 22% here. So it's Niagara on the Lake, the stats don't tell the same story, but that's because it's a luxury niche market where, again, a vast array of houses, none of them are inexpensive, but some of them are very expensive.
Is it is there obviously I can say, is there a primary industry? Obviously tourism and winery and the winery, but is there anything outside of that? What, for an average purchase price that is whatever happens to be not quite double, but we'll say, significantly more expensive than the other 3 competing markets. Are you looking at people who are doing or trying to do short-term rentals? I know you guys are pretty tight on the short-term rental legislation and stuff, right? But what's that gap? Is it just that tourism? Why is it so expensive?
I think it's a variety of things. It's a big retirement community. So everyone who's, they're selling the home they've lived in for 25 years and being able to afford these houses that are much more expensive as a result of not having a mortgage. But yes, so there are a lot of short-term rental plays in Niagara on the Lake specifically because they allow it. There is a licensing system. They are very strict, but as long as you get everything right that they're looking for, and they do have a pretty easy to follow licensing system.
Do you know what it costs approximately?
For the actual licensing itself? It's not super expensive. I think it's on the better side of $500.
Oh.
And I know there's some things you have to pay for in there, but it's not it's a super expensive task to actually get it. It's just the process to get there. As an example, 3 bedrooms, you have the parking situation. And if you have a bedroom that doesn't, how when people realtors list houses, sometimes bedrooms in the basement wouldn't qualify technically. So they're calling it a 2-bed instead of a 3.
Yeah.
If you set up one of those types of bedrooms as a bedroom, it automatically sets off their system and they come and say you cannot have a bed in there.
Okay.
So stuff like that. But I think it's, if you're doing short-term rentals and you want to avoid, Hamilton's going through this process right now where they're looking at, licensing it in a certain way where it's owner occupied only or whatever way they go. But this is safer because you can do it. You just have to do it right.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of that. It's only allowed in certain areas like everything else. But as far as industry goes, yes, obviously the wineries are huge there.
Yep.
I think people that have lived there for a long time and have sold off their land. So there's still existing farmers. There's a bunch of different type of.
And you said this style of properties are pretty vast there as well.
So you have a bunch of what I would call a luxury townhouse.
Okay.
And then a lot of bungalow, like, because it was a lot smaller until very recently. And then you have a bunch of like new build bungalows, nice 2 stories, all that stuff. And then you have all your waterfront properties, right? And all of those, like I'm listing a waterfront property at the end of September, or sorry, beginning of September, and it's like an A-frame, which is super unique. But the neighbor's house is like your average house, and then the house down the street is more of like a beach villa. So just very different across the board. But obviously very nice, very sought after, but it is like a massive retirement community as well.
Cool. Well, there you go, guys. That was, first of all, thank you. That was awesome. Selfishly, I got a lot out of that. But if there's anybody who has questions about that kind of thing, I know just with interest rate hikes and all of that kind of stuff, I'm not sure if you've seen it, but on my end, I've seen like the number of inquiries for short-term rentals peak because it's obviously harder to make the numbers work right now. So if anybody has questions about that kind of thing, reach out to Kayla, because there may be some opportunities for you in Niagara-on-the-Lake potentially.
Yeah, there is like a few other, like Thorold still allows for short-term and long-term rentals. It's the same licensing system. The other, Niagara Falls in 3 different zones allow for it. And then St. Catharines is owner-occupied. Crystal Beach, Fort Erie area just shut down their licensing a bit ago, but whether or not that gets opened back up, we will see. But yeah, so I've been getting, I think anytime like the rate goes up and everyone gets those like Scotiabank letters in the mail, your variable went up to this, your variable went up to this. I think it's like eye-opening on, obviously everyone's, margins are getting a bit smaller, but long-term.
Do you have any context around, because you said it's a big retirement community there, right? And so do you get a lot of people that just come for the summer and stuff as well, or do you do full like summer length rentals? Or
like I think that there's people that would probably especially like the foreign workers that come, so there's those types of rentals as well, because a lot of they work like at the wineries. But as far as like, I see a ton of longer term luxury holds in terms of like through the summer. But as far as people, I mean, snowbirds for sure, going to Florida usually. Of course. But like I think for the most part, it would be the older people taking off and people coming in the summer. But as far as like long-term vacationing, I'm sure it exists, but not that I've worked with.
All right, cool. I like it. Lots of good info.
All right, so I wanted to go through just some listings that are listed right now. Reason being is, I mean, there's a lot of people, 1, that have pulled back, 2 that are bullish, or 3 that are like, do I qualify to get into the market? And recently I've had quite a few clients that are like, we want to take like the path of least resistance. We want a single family rental. That's it. Like, we don't want multis, whatever. So I wanted to show that these are all under $400,000. You can see that some of these have been sitting for some time. Some of them are newer, but a lot of opportunity and even for first-time home buyers. Like, this is a great opportunity because there's some negotiating power here as well.
So what would, just to kind of put that into context, look at the numbers a little bit, like Port Colborne looks to make up a good chunk of this, right? So let's look at, there's like that that segment in the center where you got the 4 all together between 339 and 350, right? Let's just take that sample size there because it's kind of in the center, all the same neighborhood. What would you kind of be looking for if you were to buy that as a single family rental? What do you think the rents would be on something like that?
So some of these houses do need a ton of work, but I'm going to work off the ones that are like, maybe not perfectly renovated, but rentable as they stand. I would say for like a 2, because some of these are like, you got 4-bed, you got 3-bed.
I know there was a pretty mixed.
So like for like a standard 3-bed, 2-bath, you can upwards of 2,000 plus utilities. The one that I was actually super interested, I was looking at yesterday, was this Morningstar in Welland. So I have it up. I'm gonna see how I
was just gonna, while you're doing that, I'm just gonna pull up. So the investors know, but now also the end users know, if you're gonna rent this thing for $2,000 ish approximately. What's it gonna cost you to buy it? And I'm gonna try and keep this as cheap as possible. So I'm gonna go with with as little capital down as possible. So we go with 5%. I'm gonna keep the rate at 25 years for amortization. What's the property tax on something like that? Like 2,000?
Use this 14 or $1,500. This is for this property, but I think
1,500. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're looking at with 5% down. This is having $17,000 for your down payment, not including your closing costs. So if you're thinking about buying a house and you got 17 grand, or you're thinking about renting the thing, it's going to cost you about 2,000, right? Rent it. With putting your 17 grand down, it's going to cost you 1,900 to own it. So just find the 17 grand and own it.
Yeah, well, that's the thing too. Like for first-time home buyers, obviously with the 5% down, like looking at something like this, that's $300,000 and not holding offers.
Yeah.
It's a 2-bed, 1-bath. It's not huge, but you have a 40 by 100 lot. You have your own driveway. You have your own home. Like, and I printed the one that has the photos. I mean, obviously they're not huge, but it's a cute little house.
You know what? That thing, I'm telling you, for like a first-time buyer who is, if I rewinded back to like me being 25, this is my house.
Well, that's what I mean. I was looking and I was like, this is perfect for anyone that's like
just trying to get in the market, like a young couple, and they're both like, hey, we got 10 grand each.
Yes.
And like, we'll paint and we'll just like figure it out. Done. Like, amazing
like,
deal for those people.
If you look, like roof shingles 2021, furnace heater 2019, foundation replaced 2019, sewer lateral 2022, like the big stuff, you're good.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is great. Yeah. Hey, if you're a young couple, all right, if you're a young couple and you each have 10 grand, call Kayla.
It's just a cute little guy. I was looking at it yesterday and I was like, that's a pretty sweet deal.
We might never mind. Don't call her because she's trying to buy it.
No, I'm not. Sir.
I'm just kidding.
All right, and then for the more investor that want a multi, these are all under 600,000.
Wow.
And there's a ton of them. Not to say that some of them don't come with, your problem tenants or low paying tenants, but for a lot of these, even with low paying tenants, it likely still works.
Yeah.
But also, there's strategies and, as long as you can turn over some of the units or that maybe there's one that's vacant, but there's a ton of opportunity here to pick up something in a decent to good area. 2 to 4 units in this case for under.
It's a great opportunity to house hack here too for that same couple. If you're like, I can't afford the 1,900 a month, and I need to bring it down to like 13. There's probably a way to make that work in this list.
Yeah, and actually too, the house hacking point. So that's what I did when I first moved to Niagara from Hamilton. Like I lived in the basement of my house and rented out the upstairs.
Yeah.
A lot of the student rental, like the proper student rentals with like 6 bedrooms or whatever, those have come down in price too. And that's what I house hacked. Like I live in a house that has a 4 beds, 3 baths. And I had a bathroom in the basement. It was a super comfortable house hack situation because I had like my own space completely. And then the, rooms are renting for $525.
Yeah.
There's a pretty good chunk of change if you have 3 rooms upstairs or even in the basement to rent out. So there's that play as well for the house hackers.
See, I feel like I feel like over the last couple years, people have thought there's no way for us to do the things that we did when we first, I got my first place in whatever it was, 2016, right? And it was like all these strategies that we were looking up on the internet, figuring out how to do it. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. It's like, it still works. 2022, you can buy something to house hack and spend less money than what you were paying for rent and have somebody pay you. So it still works today.
Yeah, I think that it's still like an amazing play for first time, as long as you're like okay with that. But I mean, I got my house in 2015 and the only reason that I could get it at that time was because of the 3 people that lived upstairs. And I was friends with them. So it was a pretty cool situation.
That's perfect.
I like to do like the development thing because I get a lot of investors that are like, hey, what's going on in the area? What brings people to the area? What do people do there? Da, 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 da. So every month, this website. So it's basically the Niagara Business Development. It's not just for the falls. They release a newsletter. I subscribe to it because I think it's very interesting. But Niagara Falls ranks 4th as Canada's best small cities 2022 to live, work, and invest. So St. Catharines is 25th. Niagara Falls is ranked the 4th. I already mentioned that Thorold is the 4th fastest growing municipality in Ontario and the 8th in Canada. Yeah. So a lot of stuff happening. It's less than 200,000 residents was kind of the benchmark for it. And it turns out that the honeymoon capital of the world is a pretty sweet place to put down roots and raise a family, with the notion of it's always going to be a tourist destination. That's just the reality of it. But it's also regional families, people that come to Canada, people that travel from obviously different provinces. Yeah. And then it ranks number 1 amongst the small cities in Canada for a family-friendly activity, number 2 for theaters, and number 3 for sites and landmarks. So I just thought it was cool to know it is the largest city here, and the 6th largest urban area in Canada's most populous province.
Let me ask you a question. I don't want to get you in hot water, but I'm going to ask you a question here. If you had to rank Niagara and the suburban regions in terms of hierarchy for like most people's preference, right? Where would you put them? Would it be like Niagara, St. Catharines, Thorold, something like what order do people usually prefer to purchase in first?
Well, I think first and foremost, like Niagara on the Lake is obviously very, very attractive, but unattainable for most people. Yeah. Of the places that are like, decently priced, I would say St. Catharines or Thorold. They're so close that they're basically the same thing. Like I live in Thorold, but it takes me 2 minutes to get to St. Catharines. It's like a Stony Creek, Hamilton, if that's more familiar. Okay. And then, so I would say that, and then Niagara Falls, and then Port Colborne, and then
you just dropped the bottom of the list. All right, we got the top 4. That's it.
Yeah, but I didn't really I'm not counting like Grimsby, technically Beamsville. All of those are kind of the outskirts. I'm not going to count those, but for number 1, I think would be St. Catharines, Thorold area, Font Hill, Pelham as well, but it's more of a more expensive market to get into. Right. So yes, thank you, Emma, for that.
There you go. Sorry to put you on the spot.
That's okay. Can't wait for someone to rip me in the comments, but that's fine.
That's awesome.
Okay, Canada Summer Games, they are well on their way. August 6th to the 21st, they are actually almost over. The city has been buzzing with different stuff going on. There's a bunch of different sports, 18, including baseball, golf, volleyball, swimming, basically like you name it, it's happening. And then it's only the 3rd time that it's taken place here. I know from like personal experience, and I also know from clients, Airbnbs right now are booked solid regardless of where it is, because the games span the entire Niagara region. They are obviously coming to an end soon, but there will be people that will be staying, training. A lot of the facilities that they built have become training centers. Actually, one is going to be an Olympic training center. So just some cool news there. There's still, like, if people are looking for something to do this weekend, there's a lot still to happen. Thought this one was cool. So the city of City of Niagara Falls is seeking a cafe operator to be part of the Niagara Falls Exchange, which is a cultural hub and market. So it's super neat. And if someone is looking for a business opportunity outside of, real estate proper, if you're looking to own a cafe. Yeah. Maybe something to look into. They always put like just interesting stuff here. And then this is just a bunch of new business grand openings.
Oh, that's cool.
So there's been a bunch. St. Catharines is Niagara as a whole is kind of turned into like a little food hub. Like downtown St. Catharines, there's a bunch of really, really fantastic restaurants. Cool. And then outskirts as well.
I love this. This is like, if there's a definition of what is sweet, this is sweet.
Yes.
Like this is awesome.
It's super nice stuff to see, and like that's a lot. That's just 1 month. Like it was just for July, and this was just actually in Niagara Falls. But there's also these guys that have opened too.
That hot lobster dim sum looks pretty.
I know.
Cool. I'm gonna have to come check that out.
Yeah. So that's just kind of like what's happening in the Niagara Falls area, what's happening in Niagara.
Cool.
Yeah, that's that.
I like it. Well, that was super informative. So we talked about average prices. We talked about volume of sales. We talked about Airbnb. I put you on the hot spot about ranking the Niagara region and other suburban markets. So I apologize about that. Before we wrap it up here, if anybody wants to get in contact with you, Kayla, where can they reach you?
Oh, all the information is below the YouTube video, but my Instagram is agent.kaylas. Our website, Smith & Co Realty. You can book a call directly from our Instagram. There's a team of us, so we're always looking to chat and happy to help. And we are going to be doing our investor food tours coming soon. Emma, I will send you a link to that so you can come out and try all the.
I'm trying that hot lobster dim sum. So
I'm going to put that on Milan's radar. But yeah, so definitely reach out. And then I think Emma the same.
Awesome. Yeah. If you guys want to reach me, hit me up on Instagram at Pace of Base. And as always, if you found any value in this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Awesome. Bye, guys.